Hello and welcome to Elseworlds, a DC fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, is Chris. Happy New Year, Chris.
Happy New Year, Jordan. 2024 promises to be a lot of fun because, well, every year does, right?
Some years less than others, but 2024 should be a good year for me personally. But when we're talking about the DC universe, not much to be going on. James Gunn did mention Creature Commandos is going to be late this year. Joker
Mm-hmm.
is late, right? Isn't that October?
Yep.
So we got a bit. But we are going to be talking Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom today. We're going to be giving our reviews for that, and then we're also just going to tee up what next week's episode will be, and kind of make this a villain-themed month by kind of just discussing with each other on, other than Batman, who has like the best rogues gallery, who has one that can stack up to Batman in DC Comics. I think most people would say Spider-Man if we're opening it up to Marvel. But we're going to kind of keep the approach here with DC Comics. So should be a fun show to talk about. Well, maybe half of it will be a fun show to talk about. Well, no spoilers.
Yeah.
No, we're going to spoil. If you haven't seen Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, maybe dip out now and fast forward if you are interested in the other
you
conversation.
You can spoil this movie and be completely fine.
Yeah, to be honest, if you haven't seen Aquaman, I think you're not going to really care about the spoilers, honestly. It is doing pretty well financially, or decent financially, due to the fact that it's the holiday, right? So those movies usually do pretty decent, but it's a huge drop off from, I believe, the last time. And not a great. I think it was the worst opening is 4 DC films this season. But Christmas time you can with that, because then people are gonna take their kids to the theaters throughout the whole holiday. All right, so this movie was James Wan. It was written by David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick and story by James Wan, David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, Jason Momoa, and Thomas Pa'a Sebet. And it was a movie. It was 2 hours and 4 minutes long. Some would say 2 hours and 4 minutes too long. And it was released December 22nd, 2023.
Oh, the review is over. There you go. I actually had a good time with it, but it didn't sit with me well. It's one of those times I kind of walked out of the movie theater going, all right, that was fine. Nothing really offensive to it. It sits with me very poorly. I'm actually a little angrier after the fact than I was during the movie. So it's a movie. That's a good way to say it. It's a movie.
Yeah, I did not have fun with this in theaters. There were some parts that were good. Patrick Wilson is the standout in this. I feel like he's where they should have focused more of the movie on is this dynamic of the brothers, which they try to do, but it takes a bit to get there. And then one of them is really doing one of them was really doing a good job, Patrick Wilson, of being this dynamic, interesting character of Orm. And they didn't really write enough for Jason Momoa in this, honestly. I feel like, people could say it's the acting or whatever, but for me, there was nothing interesting about Arthur in this at all.
There was a very lazy screenplay, in my opinion. I think this was, hey, let's just get this movie out, get done with, say goodbye to Aquaman. It's exactly what this movie was.
But when they wrote it, we didn't know they were rebooting. I mean, this was legitimate. Like, that's what's.
But that's what it feels like in the movie. Yeah.
That's what's.
That's exactly what it felt like. You're not wrong there, though, and it makes you wonder how invested everybody was in this movie, just see if there was some reading of the tea leaves. I think Jason Momoa seemed checked out a lot of the time. I think he was just being Jason Momoa. And, it kind of works for some actors. Like Dwayne The Rock Johnson is always kind of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. But I think The Rock acted better in Black Adam than Jason Momoa did in this movie. And I'm surprised at that. Jason Momoa is a guy that I have a lot of respect for. I've always liked. I've been a fan of Jason Momoa. Going back to Game of Thrones. Pretty much
Yeah.
everything he's done is kind of, that I've seen is kind of jived with me. Uh, I enjoy Jason Momoa, but halfway through this movie, I was like, I have enough Jason Momoa. It just seemed like he was trying to just carry the movie with his vibe, and it just didn't work.
Well, it was funny because I kept seeing people say about Aqua Bro, and actually I thought, so I went in with that preconceived notion. I actually thought it wasn't as bad on that end as I thought it was going to be. There are some really odd moments. The I am Aquaman scene at the end, screams and throws the microphone is too
And it
much
goes
for
into
me.
Born in the Wild, which is like
Twice, right? Like I don't understand.
It's like
These needle drops are very confusing because they don't even match the tone of the scene.
Exactly.
For some of these.
I feel like didn't they do like the Spirit of the Sky thing right after they found Orm in the desert? And it was like,
I think it was like as they were escaping into the water or something.
yeah,
And I'm like, this
and it
doesn't
was
fit.
but it's just you just saw Orm like disheveled and like instantly gets in the water and is fine. And then they dive down to the water and it's like da, 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 da. It's like what? I don't know. I had a problem with the music in this. I thought the theme uh is actually pretty good, but they don't use it enough, and they only use it in like the triumphant hero moments. They don't really use it in anything else. I think it's just this film tried to be a popcorn movie. Like it tried to be a popcorn movie, and I have a problem with that. I think you need to try to make a movie that has substance, and I don't think they did that at all. I think they were just like, okay, what looks cool? Cool. Because it was a beautiful film. There was a lot of beautiful visuals, beautiful film.
I disagree with that too, actually. I don't see what people think is so visually appealing about Aquaman or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I just don't get it. The CG, I'm not usually one to harp on this, but I think sometimes maybe the effects are okay, but I don't think they wow me, and they definitely it's too much CG at times for me. Sometimes these underwater scenes are a little just too much. The scene where they're going past a restaurant, in the city while these fish people are having a date, and it just looks all fake. It just looks so fake to me, and I'm like, I don't. None of this, like, I'll tell you, ones that like blow me away when I see like alien civilizations or anything like that are typically. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head where I watch a movie and I'm like, wow, this visuals are really good. Like the way some people talk about this make me feel like I'm watching Avatar, which I haven't seen, but I've at least been able to see clips of the effects, and the effects in Avatar are really great. This doesn't like wow me like that, and I'm not like trying to get on the effects artists. They're doing their best, but like when you have something based in so much of the water like this, sometimes yeah, the effects are good in the sense of like their hair is moving and that looks good, but there's sometimes where it looks really weird, and it's hard for me to adjust on that at times. And like the underwater cities just didn't really do much for me.
I wanted more underwater. I didn't think there was
Even the
that much of it.
anchor. Okay, so even when we talk about some of these effects and stuff, and what I mean by too much CGI, the anchor that that and Aquaman used to like attack Manta in this little underground thing, that anchor that they're like picking up, like throwing at them or whatever, is completely CG. It looks like, and I'm like, you couldn't even get a styrofoam prop that looks good or something. Really lift something. I don't know, and I know people might know I'm hypocritical on some of this stuff because like some movies I watched this year I didn't have that much of a problem, but I think it's like when it's all set in the water like this. So like the best scenes I thought were like the desert stuff because that looked real to me. The under the water stuff just doesn't, and maybe some of that's like the art direction of how they have some of these fish people look, but
I
I
wanted
don't know.
more under the water stuff. I missed the trench that was in the first one, the horror element that you got from that. I missed a lot of the things from Atlantis. I mean, you basically just got the council of whatever that was, and which is barely glazed over. He's like, "Oh man, they got these people to tell me I can't even do what I want to do." It's like I was like, okay, there's got to be something more there, story elementally, that to that. But the first movie I really thought set up a really awesome world, and the first movie to me was a stunning visual. It was awesome. Like I loved. I wanted more underwater, and maybe it's because I left this movie thinking I wanted more underwater. That maybe I didn't have such a big problem with it because that's what I go into this movie looking for. I go into this movie looking for Atlantis. I go in this movie looking for, hey, cool, the guy who talks to fish. I hated the beginning of this. So some people say that makes me a joke. I,
There
I
was
feel like
too much of this. I know we talked
yeah.
about this in our text thread and stuff, but the movie opening up with Arthur knowing what happened as he's talking to his son, which is then revealed to be talking to his son. At first, you're just thinking he's talking to you. Explaining stuff. Dr. Shin randomly has to explain the orichalcum stuff, right?
I'm actually impressed you remember the scientist's name. I just was like that weak
I saw a
spine
Funko of
scientist
him
guy.
yesterday, but I saw a
No,
Funko of him in the
I
store.
don't need it. I'm good.
And
I
then
thought
there's like this.
I actually like the actor, but no, that
Yes,
was a
yes, yes. He's
useless role.
Jimmy Woo in the
Hmm.
MCU. Then you have Orm after he touches the the trident.
Oh my god,
Just
he knows the whole
completely
story
gets a
for us.
download. He gets a whole download and
Yeah,
explains the
it's
whole
amazing.
history of stuff. And that's the stuff that I'm like, man, they're doing a lot of heavy lifting by
And
just
he
having these
emotionally
three characters
processed all
talk.
of it. He emotionally processed
Yes.
all of it to the point where he knew how scary it was. And it got so bad that at the end of the movie, someone actually like my mom went to the bathroom and someone was like, "So who was Dolph Lundgren in this?" And I was like, I was like, "Oh shit, who what?" I just wasn't. I
Wait,
was like,
Dolph Lundgren was in it? What are we doing?
apparently, um, and I was like, maybe he was like one of the Atlantis. Yeah, and I missed on it. Apparently, he was Necros.
Wow. Okay, he was Nereus. King Nereus is
Oh, Nearest, yeah. And but you know what?
that one.
I
That
felt
was the
so
bad guy?
flabbergasted. Apparently, I felt so flabbergasted because I was like, I don't feel like I know any of the characters in this movie, and I just watched the movie. Yeah, that's a problem.
Oh, I think he was. Yes, he was the guy. He was in the first one too. So
The
he's the.
redheaded
Yes, he's the
king.
redheaded beard guy. That's.
Yeah,
Oh my god, didn't even look like him.
and like I was like, who is this guy? And I was like, because I didn't like place him when I'm watching the movie.
I didn't rewatch the first one. Now I saw the first one recently. The first time I ever watched, actually, earlier last year. But of course, we all know Dolph Lundgren in his most famous, which was in. Hold on, I'm trying to find it. Okay, here in the people would of course say the Expendables and Rocky and stuff, but no, his most famous role in The Name of the King: Two Worlds, where he played Granger, which was a terrible movie.
I'm pretty
To
sure it's
check that out.
Rocky. Rocky is his biggest. But
Well, you haven't seen In the Name of the King, Two Worlds. Watch that, and you'll know why that is his most. Just kidding. Nobody knows him from that, but I know him from that. That's like really the only other movie I've seen him in. But yeah, so I mean, like, Orm is the best part. He is really like the one that gets the redemption arc. He gets all of that. Arthur Ever is barely in this, and then is randomly a huge part of this. We see him at the beginning, and then we see him talk to fish.
Yeah.
And then we don't see him again until he gets captured. And it
was just
bizarre.
Awful. The baby stuff was just awful. Okay, so here's the thing. When we talk about great emotional moments in a movie, I think of like Spider-Man No Way Home and how earned everything was in that movie. And, you know, you had to go through the heartbreak with Aunt May. This baby is dangled in danger the whole damn time, and nothing is emotionally earned. So if like you killed the baby, the entire movie theater would just be pissed. That would be all it was. Like they would just be pissed. There would be no emotion to it. It would just be like pointless character who happens to be the most innocent of them all just dies. So that he could open this world to a bad guy who dies in 10 seconds. Like the bad guy is the most unintimidating bad guy I've ever seen. 10 seconds, gold trident, boom, he's done. What's the whole like movie about? And then the global warming thing is just plugged in there, and it's like, look,
Yeah.
I'm all for taking climate change seriously, but
well, do we know why he was doing that? Like they say he was. Was it? I mean, because Manta has to live as well, right? So like, he's using the greenhouse gases from the orichalcum, right? That is what is
But
causing.
see, he's possessed by this trident, the black dark magic of this trident. So is it how much of it is Manta and how much of it is a trident? It's not explained at all in the movie.
Because his whole drive is to kill Aquaman and Mera and Arthur
So the way I took it is the overarching bad guy behind the trident is fine with him doing his vengeance because it works for his goal. But
because he needs the blood anyway. That's why.
Yeah, it works for his goal. He's completely okay with it. But I cannot, for the life of me, understand what the real bad guy was. Was it Black Manta? Was it this guy behind the Dark Trident? The King of Atlantis' brother? Like, oh, cool, great, wonderful. It's plugged in there. It was plugged in there. You could have put a Mad Lib script in there, and it would have worked just as well. Like you could have just gone Mad Lib. Oh, I need a verb here. It was ridiculous. I've never left a DCEU movie saying they questioned my intelligence. Like this one is just like they had no respect for the audience. They told us everything. They did not let us figure anything out. There was no. And then they're like, "Oh, we're gonna toy with him. Orm is gonna let this guy die. He's gonna turn into the bad guy again." And then
and I knew
2 seconds later, 2 seconds, dramatic irony, bullcrap. I cannot stand it. Like the more you think about this movie, the more it disintegrates. That's why I said I left the theater. I was fine. It's fine. I was like, I'll probably never watch that again. It was an okay movie.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? It was flat. Like fine. I'm not pissed off. I don't want my $13 back.
Right. This was a movie. This is a movie where I'm checking my watch a lot in this movie. I was not really impressed with any of the action. I wasn't
and
really.
They cut a lot out of this movie.
I wasn't sucked into any of the characters. Because they didn't give me anything to really work with. The part of this movie is when Patrick Wilson gets that burger, and I'm like, that's my favorite part of this whole thing. Like the whole part where they go to the volcano and it's like the large animals is pointless. There's no need for it. It was a waste. I didn't like any of that.
No, it was horrible, and I think they were trying to make the like tie in all the story points to it, But let's be honest, none of the story points were developed in the first place.
They really try to stretch that metaphor of the king builds bridges. They
and they
really
didn't even do a good job of that because he didn't intentionally knock that down. He ran into it in frustration. If he had like kicked it, going, "Oh, I'm going to knock this down," then I would be like, "Cool." He took credit for being dumb and lucky.
Well, he did intentionally, but he runs into it, and then right, and then he gets the thought of, oh, the bridges, and he then goes and runs into it and makes it a bridge.
But I don't think I didn't interpret it as he knew it was going to make a bridge.
Oh no, I definitely interpreted it that way. But the thing is, then they break again at the end, and Orm kind of gives him this wink when he says it again. It was kind of like that scene felt like it was only there so that way he could tell him to build bridges between the real life
and like, I don't think Orm is there.
Right.
I don't think Orm is there as a character. I don't think Orm is like, okay, brother, build bridges. Call me brother. That's great.
It's been like 24 hours. It hasn't been.
I think like the bare appreciation for Orm is that they let him go. That's it. That's the only emotion he feels, relief that they let him go. That's it. I don't think he had character growth to be like, oh, call me brother. Oh, I'll be around. I'll help you with any problems that you ever have.
Well, I do think he actually is the only one that has character growth in this whole movie. I do think he gets there in the end of it because he was going to just send himself back there anyway because he says that's his deed. But I think the big shift is when they have that conversation on the island about, oh, so you actually didn't want my throne at all, right? He finds out Arthur is unhappy. And that seems like the whole this island thing happens, but I don't know why we have to get to this large dead rat, this large moth, all of this stuff that we didn't need to see.
Which is a waste of budget. Like if you're like, it's bad.
And it
filmmaking.
looked all fake. Is another big CG thing.
It did look bad. That did okay. It did look bad, and it was all fake, and it was pointless. It was bad filmmaking. Like a good filmmaker says, "I don't need this in here," gets it out of there. I would rather have an hour and 45-minute movie than have a 2 hour and 4 minute movie that wasted 15 minutes of my time. And they probably wasted more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, and then I don't know. This was I don't know how much I'm going to keep bashing on this. I
tried to praise this movie for what it did right, and I
rated
really
it
tried.
2 out of 5. I rated it 2 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So if people don't know, check out our blog. Chris wrote a review.
Mm-hmm.
Scathing review, by the way. Then I get to the end, it's a 3 out of 5, and I was shocked.
Yeah, I tried. The 3 out of 5. I have reverence for the first movie. I like Jason Momoa. I had some things that made me chuckle in this movie. I thought the humor was actually kind of there. Like I'm a cheeseball. The humor kind of got me.
I didn't laugh at a thing.
I like some of the humor in this movie. I think it's its only saving grace. But you know, the longer I am away from this movie, the more the frustration bubbles up about this movie. I can't forgive it. I can't forgive the movie. I hate it less than some people. I hate it less than my co-host. I actually do not like it.
I don't hate it. I literally don't hate it. It's just forgettable for me. I'm not gonna think about this movie a lot.
But it's like I said, I left the theater like this, completely flat. And that was fine with me. There was nothing offensive to me about this movie. The offensive actually seeps in. Like the effects of the whatever you would call it that they were using to raise the temperature.
Yeah. The part seemed pointless, except for I guess because
they needed a MacGuffin.
Yeah, I guess
they needed something to fill the story to chase.
The bad guy is fine with killing human life because he's one of those. They only care about the sea people, right? So. I guess that's it, but yeah, when we kept hearing pre-release like this one, the big villain is actually is global warming, and you're like, that sounds weird. It's not even that really. It's still like Manta and this
movie wants you to think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's supposed to speed up the global warming, and then now they reveal themselves, and they're going to reverse this somehow. And there you go.
This felt like an audition for Lobo. To be honest with you, it was just it's like, yeah, he can be Lobo. Honestly, I was starting to think he maybe should get somebody else. I was like, I he looks the part. I get it, but like he apparently had like influence over the script. Like James Gunn, do not accept his calls.
I don't. I trust James in this regard. Of he's not going to give Jason Momoa full reign on doing. James had to have seen this movie too.
Yeah,
he has. So, gave notes and stuff, but it was already mostly done at that point. But
gave notes.
Yeah.
Okay, just get it out. Don't promote it at all.
And that's my mom. Like my mom was like, "Hey, what were you doing today?" And I said, "I went to the movie." What'd you see? I said, "Aquaman 2." She said, "I haven't even seen any promotion." And I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, it's the last one. Why would you promote it? Really? Why would you? And also, it's not a promote. You don't. You
Its
do the
promotion
half-ass
wasn't the
promotion.
holiday.
You do the half-ass promotions they've been doing. And you call it a day, and you say we're putting everything into Joker 2, we're putting everything into Superman Legacy when it comes to promotion, and those are going to be our heavy hitters for 2024 and 2025.
It's that simple, and its promotion was that, hey, it's on Christmas, go see it. It's Christmas.
People just go to the theater without even knowing what's out. They'll be there and they'll be like, "Oh, Momoa, we'll go see this movie."
That was the whole strategy.
As they're walking.
All right. Is there anything we left out of this movie? I did love the cockroach bit. I liked that. I thought it was fun.
I could have done without him putting it in the burger, but
see, I was a little annoyed because I waited for that. I think that was the mid-credit scene.
Yeah.
And I waited for that, and I was like, I could have just left. That's the only reason it annoyed me. If that was like at the end of the movie before the credits, would have loved it.
Yeah.
Don't make me wait for Patrick Wilson to eat a cockroach on a burger. The joke's not that good. I like the joke. It's not that good.
All right. Well, I guess now we can move on from this movie and move on from the DCEU. This is it, guys. This is the end. I left this movie knowing for sure, no regrets that they're rebooting.
Yeah. The only thing this missed was a Wonder Woman cameo. That was pointless to the movie.
With the awful Wonder Woman song.
Oh, that's the best part about Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. Yeah.
It's silly. Like I watched Fury of the Gods since release. I saw the clip her showing up at the funeral again. The fact that they play that music as she's like approaching the funeral is very odd.
It is odd.
It is very odd. I'm like, I get that, but like, can we play like a somber version of it? Something that's appropriate?
How would you somber version that?
Yeah, I don't know. Put a spin on it.
I don't know.
Very jarring to just be like, we're all mourning our 14-year-old's loss here, and then this heavy metal approach as she comes strolling in. I get it's supposed to be a triumphant moment. You're supposed to know she's going to resurrect him, but it's still like tonally a little off. But yeah, thank God we didn't get that in this movie. I'm ready to say goodbye to this. I really am.
I've been ready.
I've been ready since BVS came out. Okay.
All right.
It is.
I don't know about that.
There were some things that I enjoyed throughout this DC extended cinematic universe. But I had this as the worst movie of the year I saw in theaters, Aquaman, and I put it at 2 stars. So that's right, everybody. I do have Flash higher than this. I do have Blue Beetle and Fury of the Gods higher than this. I
do as well.
Quantumania and the Marvels higher than this. So
I do as well.
Everybody can suck it. And of course, Guardians and Across the Spider-Verse.
I actually had the Flash very high on my list, so it's is what it is.
But Flash
I
is
love
like
the
almost
Flash.
middle of my list here.
Flash is right behind Spider-Verse. Guardians, Spider-Verse, Flash.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, the Flash means a lot to me, so I'm fine with it.
Right. And I just think about any of those movies I watched this year, and I was just so much more engaged by all of those other than this. But if I'm looking at my DC rankings overall, I don't know where I'd put this one yet. I guess I'd have to check my ratings real quick. I rank them all by the stars. So this would actually fall 14th, and would be just above Suicide Squad 2016. You know what? I will have to change. I will have to change that actually, because I definitely think Birds of Prey is worse than this. So I will have to.
Birds of Prey is fantastic.
No, Birds of Prey is my second least favorite.
I love Birds of Prey.
So here's my highlights as we move on. The Suicide Squad, James Gunn's #1, my favorite. Then I know we just talked about these recently on a episode in the middle of summer, but I'm just wanting to reiterate. Then I have The Flash second, Shazam third, Black Adam fourth, Man of Steel fifth, Zack Snyder's Justice League sixth, Wonder Woman seventh, Blue Beetle eighth, Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice is ninth, Fury of the Gods is 10th, Aquaman 11th, Justice League 12th, Wonder Woman 84 13th, 14th Birds of Prey, and 15th
you gotta watch that again.
Suicide
It's
Squad.
good. Birds of Prey is good. Birds of Prey is in the top half.
Yeah, I didn't.
I love Birds of Prey.
I've
watched that movie like 4 times. I love that movie. I'm not gonna do my list right now because I didn't really think of it up, but But Birds of Prey is definitely in the top half. Love Birds of Prey. It's a fun movie. Had a blast with it.
So I've been ready to move on for a while. So thankfully we are, and thankfully the guy who made the #1 movie on my list is the guy in charge going forward. So we'll see how it goes from there. Looking forward to Superman Legacy. That's supposed to start filming in about 2 months. So we're good there. Let's move on from the DCEU and let's take a look at what, since WB is, we're going to move on as well. And we're going to talk about, we have this great episode coming up next week. Do we want to say what it is yet, or are we holding off on that?
I think we can tell them. I think it's an exciting episode. We're going to do a Batman Rogues, Batman Villains draft. And
without Joker. We're not drafting Joker. So it's like we're drafting the best ones after Joker. Think of it that way. It's not a snub to Joker, but it's just he's the default 1A pick.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it. So
100%. So we're going to have me, you, and Ron as always. But we're going to have a special guest on, Chris Evans. You might know him from Gathering of the Geeks.
Captain America's in this?
Oh, no, not that Chris Evans. Not that Chris Evans. The more important one. And you might know him from the Gathering of the Geeks podcast and DC Unlimited podcast as well. Really good dude. Is going to vibe with us and jam out a Batman villain draft. I'm really looking forward to it. But we we're like, with that backdrop, villains are the focus of this month. And we kind of want to tease that episode, get you ready for it. So what character in DC has a rogues gallery that stacks up to the Gotham City crew?
I really think there's only 2 answers to this. I really do.
Superman and Flash?
Yes. Those are the only 2 answers I think here. And I would probably go Superman. I know a lot of people will say Flash, but I think in pop culture, like if I'm looking at it pop culture wise, on who knows villain, like who the general public, if I went out on the street and said, name me a Superman villain, I think more people are going to be able to do that than when I say, name me a Flash villain.
I agree with that. Nobody knows Weather Wizard. That's fine.
Right. Yeah, I would just love like going on the street in New York and being like, name me a Flash villain, and getting that one person that's like Pied Piper. And you're like, damn, all right, this guy knows. Like this guy knows. But I think you're gonna get more on Superman. And I think his are legendary. I mean, if you look at it, Lex Luthor, right?
Wait, did this guy just say Sam Scudder? Give him $100.
Yeah. Not only did he say Mirror Master, he went with Sam Scudder. All right, yeah.
I like, just give him $100. He wins.
You have Lex Luthor, Bizarro, Metallo, right? You have Zod. All of these have kind of permeated the culture. People that you'll watch TV shows and you'll hear people say like kneel before Zod. You'll see
Miss Piglet.
Yes.
He's
exactly.
transformed a lot. Like was on My Adventures of Superman, and he was a Supergirl villain. He's been in one of the things I know him from was Superman Batman, the comic run where they did. There was a great like issue
Jeff
where
Loeb's
like
one?
and he like merged Superman and Batman together, and like they're one body, like half and half. And Superman goes, "Why is it so dark all of a sudden?" It was like one of my favorite. Like I just loved it. But like he's been in a lot of stuff.
Bizarro's well known. I mean, there's a whole Seinfeld episode about Bizarro Jerry and stuff. Like, I think when you Brainiac, right? I mean, Darkseid, Doomsday, he has some huge heavy hitters. Not even counting Lobo, Livewire, right?
I will want to stick up for Central City's rogues here. And not that I think anything that you just said is wrong, because I think you're 100% right. Pop culture wise and heavy hitter wise, you kind of got it. But I do want to stick up for the Central City rogues in the same fact of they are to Barry Allen what the Gotham City villains are to Bruce Wayne. They're very personal villains. Captain Cold is a really good villain for Barry Allen. You have, they all represent something that, Barry has to fight or Wally has to fight. I think character wise, I think the rogues are really tailored to the Flash really well. And I think it's also really cool that you have so many good Flash villains, because you have to be creative to be able to challenge the Flash. You have to be really creative to challenge the Flash. With Superman, it's like you either need kryptonite or magic. And guess what? All of them have kryptonite or magic. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think Central City has some really creative stories with their villains that you don't necessarily get with Superman's villains.
Well, I guess it all depends on what your definition of stacking up with Batman's are, right? Because when you first said this, my thought was just like popularity, notoriety, right?
Oh yeah, you've won, but that would be a really short podcast episode. So, you're 100% correct. Everything you said was true. Like I got nothing.
And
but I gotta present the other side of the coin, because I do love Flash comics.
Right. No, I do too. Yeah. So
and I've read a lot of them. They're great.
I think he underrated rogues, I'll say. I think part of the problem that they end up having is a lot of the rogues are a sense of a lot of times when the rogues appear, it is as them combined as the rogues, which I think sometimes takes away how much people will run at times, because when you sometimes think back to, like, sometimes you just want to, I'm trying to think of the way to like the phrases. People will look at like Batman villains and Spider-Man villains, and while the Sinister Six do team up occasionally for Spider-Man, they also have a lot of interactions with him solo. And I think that is maybe something that recently is kind of more of a detriment to, is them just kind of always a lot recently anyway, like the newer issues, they're all going up together as we're the rogues, right? I know in the past they did used to also appear a lot solo or before they built into the Rogues Gallery and stuff. But
I think Captain Cold stands apart from pretty much all of them. I think
Captain Boomerang.
I was just about to say Captain Boomerang.
But then, like, when you look at lately, those have even been really overshadowed by the big one, right? Which is Reverse Flash.
Reverse Flash is not part of the Rogues Gallery, and that he's his own thing. So that actually kind of works to its detriment as well. I mean, you got a point there.
They've been overshadowed by a recent string of comics since Flashpoint of him being the new art.
And you can't blame Flash comic creators because Thawne is just that guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We love him, right? I think I took him in the villain draft or something, right? Or
yeah, and I was mad at you.
Yeah,
I was mad because I knew Ron wasn't going to take him. So I was like, I just have to figure out when Jordan's going to take him. And you did.
And, that is because he's such an interesting character, right?
He really is.
I really do think that. And I think that's that is a plus in Flash comics is he has that big heavy hitter of Reverse. But when you look at the Superman comics, his heavy hitter is Lex. But not only that, but who killed him? Doomsday, right? And that's become a big story. So, like, while Flash's main Flash has kind of become like the staple for Flash and Reverse Flash, Superman's big staple of Death of Superman doesn't even really feature Lex as like the main guy, right? So I don't know. So I think it's interesting because I think most people, some of those I named were deep cuts when it comes to Superman villains and that, but I think when you look at Lex and be that complex character, sometimes he isn't, right? Not to bring up the DCEU, we're moving on there, that he was not very complex in that interpretation at all.
What, you don't like Granny's peach tea?
Oh, I don't. It's gross. But it's stuff that I think we're going to get a really great Lex into the DCU. And I think that's going to make Superman's villains kind of stand out again in public. I think people usually just look at Lex and think, oh, it's just a bald guy. But he's also the guy that can kind of hold his own at times. He's a smart businessman. He kind of gets away with a lot. I think kind of really reminds me of like Kingpin a bit, right? Not just because they're bald, but Kingpin kind of gets around a lot. They're very similar. Because Kingpin gets away with a lot because of his connections with the police and stuff. He also runs and stuff. You have Lex running for president, business tycoon, works with shady people. They're very similar. But I think most people play
I actually think Lex versus Batman is always fun. Now, of course, Lex Luthor will not be viable for our Batman villain draft. I will not accept that as a villain you could pick from. No. But when Batman, because when Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor go head to head, I think that's interesting. I think Bruce's contempt for Lex is very interesting. This, he's probably the only one that we could ever talk about that would match up with the wealth of Lex Luthor. I mean, in Marvel, you have Black Panther, but like outside of that, I mean, Tony Stark too. But in DC, Lex Luthor is the only one who's even close to as rich as Bruce.
Right.
And I still don't understand how the son of a doctor is so rich. But like, I feel like it's
Bruce?
Like, it's like his father was a doctor. It's a little far-fetched. Like, you have the Wayne Corporation, but
yeah, that's something I've always wondered. Is the doctor that eventually went into business that
but I've always thought that was a little weird. I think old school mentality is doctors make a lot of money, so let's make this rich guy a doctor. But I think now it doesn't quite work. Now they're like, how long did it take him to get out of debt for medical school?
Right. Or is he a doctor and he's not a doctor, right? I got a doctorate in creating business or business school, and then moving on to whatever. Yeah, it is interesting how they.
I mean, it's also led to a lot of the more interesting stuff. Like one of the more interesting things with the Batman was it Falcone? Was it Maroni? What kind of shady deal did he make? The renewal fund. There was a lot of shady stuff that the Batman kind of set up that, not having all those answers kind of gives you the ability to play with. You've seen like Batman Earth 1 was a little different in where they went with that. So there's a lot of different ways you can go with it. And I like not having those answers. As the Joker said, if my life history is as a test, I prefer it to be multiple choice.
So if we are, we've mostly just talked those two, Flash and Superman. If you were going to make a pitch for somebody other than those two as having a strong rogues in DC, who are you looking at? Can you make a case?
I feel like Green Arrow, you can almost kind of do it, but that crosses over with the Batman line too. Especially because I think the show used a lot of Batman stuff. So no, you can't do it for that. Green Lantern, you really just got Sinestro. That people know. Aquaman doesn't really have enough.
Yeah, I was trying to think some of these through, and I was like, Green Lantern. I was like, Sinestro.
Wonder Woman has some. Wonder Woman has
Cheetah.
Like Medusa, Cheetah. Apparently the movie Maxwell Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It is tough to look at that and say, hey, can I create another? Like, can I make the pitch for somebody else? And I don't think you can.
So one of the cool things that DC has going for it is if Darkseid, they have, that kind of an overarching thing. They have a lot of villains that are great for the Justice League, but don't carry out to like individual members.
Darkseid has kind of been seen as a Superman villain at times.
But like he's really kind of his own entity. I mean, Darkseid is. That's what Darkseid is. He's really kind of his own thing, like the New Gods kind of thing. So, I mean, he's only a Superman villain because Superman's the only one he has to worry about.
Right.
But he's basically a Justice League villain.
It depends on how they want to write him at the end of the day.
Speaking of Superman, Batman with Jeff Loeb, one of my favorite moments is Batman punches Darkseid right in the face and beats him just because he outsmarted him, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you punched me in the face." I'm like, yeah, because I can. Yeah, I got you. I can do whatever I fucking want. I love Batman. Pardon the F-bomb. But it's just one of my favorite moments. Like that is just such a Batman thing. It's like, you can't do shit. You do shit, your whole planet explodes. You have no army. Right. I win. I love Batman. I love him. But yeah, Darkseid's really a Justice League villain.
So is there anything to talk about?
Let's see. I'm pretty excited about next week's episode. We were talking about doing maybe a March Madness kind of superhero thing between the podcasts.
Yeah.
I actually had an interesting idea. So a James Gunn soundtrack madness. So from the Guardians films, Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, all the songs, and put the songs in a bracket.
That's a good idea because it does stretch over DC and Marvel.
Yeah, it'd be like the songs are the one thing that can connect us all. The music, man.
There you go.
Yeah, I was thinking of that on the walk because I was taking a walk and I just had my music on shuffle, and it was hey, hey,
Yeah.
what's the matter? I was like, what do you think of? What do you think of when you hear that song? And the
Think
only
of
reason it's
Peter
on my
dancing,
song
yeah.
is because James Gunn takes over my playlist every time he puts out a new movie.
Right,
So,
right.
That's
a thought. Yeah, we'll nail down exactly what we're doing with it, and then during March Madness in 2 months, so we got time. We'll be putting out the over on, I guess, both of the podcasts, over on the Marvel Pod and our pod here. We will be putting up whatever bracket it is, or because I think
Jam Media, baby.
Yeah, the only thing you have to worry about with that is I think the Marvel side is probably going to. There's so many more songs than
there are more sides
than the DC stuff so far.
You're just going to have to not break it down by sides. What you're going to have to do is have regions rather than sides.
Yeah. So we'll play around with it.
Some songs though. Peacemaker did even it up a bit.
Yeah, Peacemaker did help, especially having 8 episodes of Peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna do all that, but
come and get your love.
We'll figure it out, and we'll see who you guys all vote for. I guess on best James Gunn soundtrack song. That's
we got time. We might not even do it though.
No, I think that is a good idea because it does stretch over both of these properties, which is, look, if everything goes well, we'll do this again next year and we'll have a different thing. Like we'll have more time to think about it. But right now we're kind of not in a crunch because we got 2 months, but like we're in a bit of a, we'll expand it next year and really think about it. And I'll figure out the soundtracks and how we would see them, and like you said,
so you'd have to do tracks. You couldn't do soundtracks. The soundtracks would be like,
oh no, that's what I'm saying. Tracks, it'd be the tracks,
yeah. So that sounds like a fun project. We're just gonna have fun. Like I like what we're doing. You, me, and Ron, and getting other people involved is always fun. And if you have comments, questions, concerns, I mean, hit us up. You want to be on the show? Hit us up.
Yeah, all of our stuff is in the below, or if you're looking at if you're listening audibly on a podcast, it's in the show notes. And like he just said, Logjam Media, which is our podcast network. I should have probably that we are part of it, but that's what we are.
This man right here is Logjam Media.
Yeah,
Jordan. He is the log jammer.
And when you have we have a Discord, so if you want to join that and talk with us over there, feel free to join. It's in the links below as well. But yeah, we have a Discord where we're talking. It's for all of the podcasts that we do. So there's a lot of stuff.
We talk football there too, like
And then we have football.
You just did a wrestling thing for your buddies over there. So.
Yeah, because I'm not a wrestler, but I'm not a fan of that really. But Ron, so I said, hey, here you guys go. They were chatting.
See, I wrestled in high school. Like I did the real wrestling.
Oh, you did the real one. Yeah.
I did the real one. Yeah. I don't mess with the fake stuff.
You're authentic. And we're having fun over there. I did create a new YouTube channel, Jam Media, as well, where you'll probably see if it's something that doesn't fall under Star Wars, Marvel, and DC, that's probably where we're going to put it. So if we want to get into talking other stuff sometimes or doing fun stuff.
Like we should do a Harry Potter episode. We should do like a Harry Potter episode. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just totally. We could talk Harry Potter for hours, I bet.
Yes, I can. Yeah, so just keep an eye on all of our stuff over there. We're having a good time creating this stuff, and contact.
We should get Ron to read the books.
Oh, has he not?
I doubt it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I would bet money, but maybe I'm wrong.
All right, we'll have to see. We're gonna have you place that bet, and then we'll contact.
It's gonna be a small bet.
I got $20 on this. What?
All right. I got $10 that he hasn't read more than 3.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm taking that. I don't know Ron well enough to be like, I'm in. I'm buying that. So if you said he hasn't read them, I'm going to take your word on that. But
I'm gonna bet on that. Like I don't know. I haven't asked him, hey, have you read Harry Potter? But if we bring up Harry Potter, he doesn't seem like he's with us.
Oh, true. Yeah, we've brought it up a couple times. You're right.
He doesn't feel like it feels like a you and I tangent.
Right. Yeah, so just make sure you're following us at all places. Infinity Saga and Beyond. Ron and Beck and I are going to be talking What If Season 2. I just have to sing it. The issue of the daily releases during the holiday, I was super slammed in catch up. The weekly releases, I was able to watch and like immediately podcast about. So I feel so behind right now, and I've haven't had the time with all this stuff going on. So I was hoping to get it out sooner because guess what? Echo's coming out. All 5 episodes dropping next week, which means then I have to watch that in podcast. So it's going to be a pretty hectic time for me over the course of January.
I actually like the way they're marketing that. Like I saw the commercial for it and I was like, yeah, I'm down, dude. I'm down for
like
Echo.
the
I was down
football
anyway.
games and stuff.
Yeah. Like I saw the commercial during the college football playoffs like at least twice.
A lot that day. Yes, that's dropping on Disney Plus on January 10. So sometime after that, we'll be talking Echo over there. And yeah, I think that's mostly it. But thank you all for watching and listening along. Next week we're usually bi-weekly, but we had to kind of postpone this episode on track next week with doing our Batman villain draft. And then since it's villain month, we'll come up with another villain idea before the end of the month. And then that'll be that. But make sure you contact us below. Have a great rest of your week, and we will catch you next time.